Hello, my name is Jade. I wanted to do a video today. If you've seen my videos before, I've been talking about over the last couple of years, every 6 months or so, I do a little video on how I've been doing on my recovery journey. And it's actually, I think, 6 months since I last did one. So I just wanted to check in with you and tell you what life's been like. I guess what you could expect for yourself if you're on a similar journey to me. And just really share what I've been doing, what I did to get to where I am now, which is a really good place. Like, I'm really happy in life. Even amidst any life challenges, I still feel pretty happy, which is a great feeling. So I'm gonna talk to you a bit about what life is like now and what I've done to get here. I was gonna do this outside because it's a really beautiful day, but it's also absolutely freezing, so I've decided to just sneak into my car and be warm. So yeah, just a bit about me first. If you've not watched my videos before, I'm 34. I live in Wales in the UK, which at the moment it's spring, but there was ice on my car this morning as well as blossoms out on the trees, so it's very odd right now. It should be lovely spring weather. I absolutely love this time of year, really lovely. And yeah, I have 2 children, something I'll tell you a little bit more about. I never thought I could be a parent, and yeah, just driving my little girl to school. I'm sitting outside the school now, driving my little girl to school this morning. I just can't believe where life is now. I just can't believe I'm not only a mum, but I'm a really happy mum. And it's like, I just feel really fulfilled and overjoyed. Like, my aim with recovery was always, because of how bad I was, my aim with recovery was always, I just want to get through the day. I just want to be able to exist without being bombarded with distressing images, thoughts, sensations, 24 hours a day, even into my dreams. So my life goal was probably quite small, and I felt very angry at people who were happy. In my head, I didn't treat them badly. I just found it unbelievable that they could feel, joy at things. I just found it so, I just thought, they just don't understand, how can they be, I don't know, I don't even know why I was angry. I just, envy, I suppose. You just would give anything to be them. And I suppose the anger came about when I found people sort of complaining about things and thinking, how could you possibly find that annoying or upsetting, when I am in this absolute world of suffering, and you're just whining about something that I wouldn't even notice. And interestingly, something else I want to share is that once the recovery journey is very far along, you do find yourself whining about those things that people were whining about that used to drive you mad. And it's kind of like, you have to have a word with yourself, because it's like, no, don't do this. But it's also quite joyful because you think, oh, amazing, these are what my problems are now. And so in a way, the suffering has made life better on the other side, because if I'm whining about something, I have perspective that this is not that bad because of the suffering. And because of the suffering too, everything, it's like living life in HD. Like, everything just seems better because you know what it's like to not see the world for what it is, which is amazing, an amazing place. So I wake up each morning at the moment. We can only talk in 6-month chunks, really, can't we? I wake up in the morning at the moment with that, like, Christmas Eve feeling, like, every day. And I know that, I don't know if that was realistic for all of your life, but I'm finding that even with whatever's going on in life, like, there could be a stressful situation with family or money things or kid things or friendship stuff, my underlying feeling is the Christmas. I've got it now. It's like a giddy feeling. It's like, I'm so excited for the rest of the day and what I can do in the future, and it's just nice. It's just warmth. It just must be what people talk about who don't have OCD, when they're like, I can't wait for my holiday next week, I used to be like, why would you be excited for that? Holidays are hell on earth for me. So that is my underlying baseline feeling. And before, so 3 years ago, it was like OCD was in my dreams. I woke up, instantly remember the dreams, replay the dreams, compulsions, all day compulsions. And mine were mainly mental rumination. So I would just be thinking over and over and over, assessing, you know, working it all out, you know, all day. And it is quite surreal to look back at that time. I just can't believe that the body and the mind can allow us to go through such suffering. Like, so my OCD started to get very, very bad when I was 14, 15. It had been quite bad from about the age of 9, but it got very bad at 14. And so I suffered severely, like life impactingly, with OCD from the age of 14 until 31. You know, 31 is when I started to see that there was a way I could get better, and I'm 34 now. So that's nearly 2 decades, whichever way you look at it, that's 17 years. I can't believe, now that I'm well, and I don't have any chronic anxiety, any chronic guilt, any compulsions, you know, sometimes things try and sneak back in, and I'll talk about that, but I don't have any of the stuff that I used to have, ever, at all, like ever. I don't ever feel chronic anxiety now. I can feel anxiety sometimes, which I'll talk about, but it's never chronic, and it goes and releases really quick. I just can't believe that the body and mind allows you to live like that for so long. I just can't. I'm almost like, now that I'm out of it, I just can't believe it happened to me. It's a bit like, it's not even a trauma. It's just like, yeah, it's just disbelief. Like when you hear one of those stories about, I'm not likening it to like Auschwitz or anything, but when you hear what people endured and you think, how on earth did they do that? And I've gone through many of the stages of recovery now, so I just look at that time as like, whoa, you're so strong. I don't look at it as like, oh, like poor me, that was awful. I just think, whoa, like you're so strong. That's amazing that you did that for 17 years and you achieved a couple of things along the way. The fact that you even got out of bed sometimes is like incredible. And I just see that old person as like very, very strong. And so now, like I was in a coffee shop the other day working, and there was a girl I recognised who does a lot of running for her mental health, and I got chatting to her, and she was saying about how she'd left her job due to her illness and stuff, and I was just like, oh, you're just so strong. It's amazing that you're out here, you're writing a book, you're running, it's amazing. Just mental illness just doesn't strike me in any way as weak, even if someone is literally in bed 24 hours a day in a mental health hospital. I think just even to be alive makes you strong. So one of the first things to say to you if you're really bad and really suffering at the moment is like, your future self will look back and be like, wow, like it's amazing how strong you are. I felt extremely weak when I was suffering with my mental illness. I think because I didn't realise like how a normal brain operates, because I'd had OCD my whole life and I didn't remember a time before it. I just figured I was weak as a person, because what happens is when your friends say things like, oh, what's the matter with you? You know, why are you anxious over that? That's stupid. Don't be anxious about that. I don't think I'd quite comprehended the fact that most people don't have the response that I was having to the sort of situation. So whether that be going to the beach, like, which was the most terrifying thing for me in the world when my OCD was bad, and they could happily lay there drinking a beer and chilling out, and they'd be like, well, what's the matter with you? I did think like, yeah, what is the matter with me? There's something really weird about me. So that was something that I didn't know at the time. So again, just to reiterate how bad I was, I've covered this on videos before, but I worked I probably became a bit of a workaholic so that I would like keep the thoughts out. I've always loved my work, but I just worked. My boss told me off for not taking holidays. I would work like 16, 17, 18-hour days. I'd work the weekends. I'd go in on bank holidays. It was just my escape, and triggers weren't allowed anywhere near me, because if I saw even an image of a trigger, anything at all, I would be in bed sick for days. So I would say I've not heard of many cases that were more extreme than my OCD, even though to the rest of the world it was invisible. I know that it can get worse where people quite literally can't function anymore. I could function, but within a box. So, you know, my routes were meticulously planned. My whole life was on a schedule to entirely avoid triggers, and I could get away with it for 6 months at a time, not seeing a trigger. So yeah, what started to happen is the fears just grew and grew and grew, and I got to 25, I had an extreme breakdown, and I didn't even know it was OCD until I was 27. So I just thought there was something completely wrong with me, and it was just that my 20s were an extremely difficult time. So when I finally started to get a bit better was when I learned what OCD was. I was like, okay, this has got a bit of an explanation. I need to leave this alone. This is OCD. I understand now that I'm not this scary person I think I am. My thoughts are basically my brain playing a game with me. And I felt, I can feel the feeling in my stomach now. I remember my therapist at the time, who was amazing. She was called Catherine, and she said, have you heard of OCD harm? I've never heard it called that since. Have you heard of OCD harm? I was like, what are you on about? She said, I think you've got OCD. This is after 2 years of talking therapy with someone else and about 7 months with her. She'd been researching my symptoms, and she was like, I think you've got OCD. And for about 6 weeks I was in complete denial. It's like, no, that's not me. I've just got something really wrong with me. And yeah, so once I actually realised and came to terms with, wow, that is exactly what I have. I read this website, and there was this girl called Jade who shared an amazing story about her life as a mum, and I was like, that's me. That is me. She was saying about how she would look at other mums and wish to swap brains with them. And I'd never related to a sentence so much in my life. And she also said, and this has stayed with me forever, that having extreme like harm type POCD type OCD feels like, oh, this is so accurate, feels like you've got a body buried in your garden and only you know about it, and you put it there, and the police are turning up at any second. And she said that's what it feels like to have this form of OCD. And I was like, oh my God, I felt like that for 17 years or however long it was at that point. And I really had. I was like, that is exactly the feeling, that chronic guilt. Because it doesn't ever go, does it? Because if you actually feel like there's a body in your garden, until you found out, why would that feeling go? And that's what it's like. So I lived like that for that long. So finding her was a really good step. And I really thought that I was going to be recovered at that point, because I was like, well, I know it's OCD now. I know, you know, the problem. So surely now I can just move on. And so we started doing some exposures, like being around my fears a bit more. I'd had my first baby at this point and was in a very dark place, because I don't think I minded my life being ripped to shreds by OCD, because I was so low that it was like, whatever, you know, I just took the punches and there was no point fighting. But since becoming a mother, I was just locked in this depression and anxiety cycle of I can't get this time back. I'm gonna miss this. I'm gonna miss it. If I don't do something, this kid is gonna grow up with a mum who doesn't want to take her swimming, who doesn't want to go to the beach, who won't go on holiday, who is scared of everything, who isn't going to enjoy bath time, who isn't going to enjoy meal times. I don't want to be this person anymore. And I remember being in Italy on holiday. It was a while ago now. It was July 2018. And that's when I found the OCD recovery Instagram page, and that's where I think my journey really started to ramp up, because I read all the posts and it made sense. All of the questions that were in my head going, yeah, but this is real, this is not OCD, what about this, what about that? I'd never heard the sort of chronic guilt side of things talked about, and so I thought, this sounds like the missing piece for me. And I just burst out crying because I was on holiday and I was doing all these compulsions day in, day out, trying to enjoy the holiday, but just compulsions around my daughter, just all the time, just exhausted me and obsessing me. And I thought, I just don't want this anymore. And it was a turning point because I felt hope. I'd been, you know, having really useful OCD therapy with my therapist, and it had been moving me forwards really well. But I got to the point where I was like, I think this is it. I think this is as far as I can go. And I just think feeling that feeling of hope was really a pivotal moment. You know, the two most pivotal moments for me were, one, have you heard of harm OCD, or OCD harm, as she called it? That moment will stick with me the rest. That is the first time I ever heard of the words OCD in relation to me. So after 13 or 14 years of chronic suffering, hearing those words, I can remember the colour of the chair, I can remember the plant, I can remember what books were on the stand, I can remember Catherine's face and her saying that to me, and I'll remember that for the rest of my life. And then the second one is sitting on the bed in my in-laws' house in Italy and finding the OCD recovery page and being like, that's my life. And not just someone sort of saying they've been through what I've been through, but more that there's more to the journey than this. Like you can have more. And I remember feeling like, wow, like, so I just dropped a message to say like, thank you. And then I would say, because really, if you think about it, then that's 4 years ago. The first year I spent just reading the posts compulsively on the OCD recovery page. Oh yeah, that's me. Yep, that makes me feel better. Yeah, okay, that's me. And obviously, you know, OCD, anyone who specialises in OCD is not going to encourage compulsions. So it wasn't that the posts were giving reassurance, it was just I was reminding myself, oh, it's okay, I've got OCD. The other thing to note is that I lived locked in physical sensations in relation to my POCD for all of that time as well. So I was physically exhausted from my body just being in overdrive all the time. And I forget about that sometimes because that's completely gone as well. That's the bit where I wanted to die. I genuinely thought if I didn't love people so much in my life, I would definitely take my own life. And the way I would describe it, because there was always a fighter in me, so I didn't actually ever want to go through with killing myself. But I remember thinking I would really love it if I walked out and got hit by a bus, because I wouldn't have had to think about it, but this would all be over. I remember thinking that because I thought my thoughts were real. I was having all the physical sensations. You know, you get physical sensations with all the forms of OCD, which I had a few, but that was the one that got me because it meant the thoughts were real in my head. So I was just living in this reality where I was this hidden monster. That's how I believed I was. I didn't know what OCD was. So it's 14 years of feeling that way, believing it's real. There wasn't even anyone saying, Jade, this is OCD, this is not real, thoughts are just thoughts. There wasn't even anyone saying that to me. It was just real. So you can imagine after 14 years of that, you're just like, when does this end? I used to want tragedy. Like, this sounds awful, but for me, sadness, anything bad happening in my life, that was an escape because it would become the overriding emotion. So if I looked to the future, I'd think, and this is highly rational because I'm certain if it happened in real life I'd never feel this way, but I used to look forward and think, oh, I hope I get a really bad illness or something so that I just have to lay in a hospital bed my whole life and I don't have to face the world, and people would understand, they wouldn't question why are you staying in bed all day because I'd be ill, I wouldn't be able to do anything, or I would hope for dark things to happen, so it would just, everyone wouldn't be so joyful around me and there'd just be something happening that stopped the world. So I think just sharing that with you, probably if you're not as bad as that, or if you've suffered a little bit less than 14 years, or maybe you've suffered longer, I think it just goes to show that it doesn't matter the severity, the tools work the same. Mine took quite a long time to change around. So yeah, what did I do? I just followed that page for probably about a year before I actually did anything, because again, I thought, oh, just reading these posts, it'll remind me, but you'll probably see a lot on the OCD recovery page that it's belief shifts that lead to how I'm feeling now. It's not telling yourself over and over stuff, it's actually having a different belief system, and that takes time. So yeah, one of the first things that I did was started to learn about, to try and, at the start of the unconditional self-acceptance phase and self and life acceptance phase, try and start by thinking about it as more, you're just going to try and understand what it is. Because I spent 6 to 8 months desperately trying to get it. Or am I unconditionally self-accepting now? Am I unconditionally accepting life? Just spend the time learning about it with the reading list. So like read the books and start to go, what is unconditional self and life acceptance? That's the advice I'd give myself. If I was going back in time, it's like, don't put pressure on it. Just learn what it is first, so that you've got an understanding to be able to apply it to your life. The reading list is really important. So How to Stubbornly Refuse to Make Yourself Miserable is the first one I read by Albert Ellis. Didn't get it at all, had to read it again. Would spend 6 months doing nothing, too scared to face my exposures. So that's why, you know, when we look at the fact that I found out I had OCD 4.5 years ago. I found the OCD recovery Instagram page 4 years ago. I spent a year not really doing anything. I started working with Rob 3 years ago. Then I had a few sessions, got scared, had another 8 months not doing anything, coasting as you could call it. Got back into the reading list, spent a year really finally going for it. 2020 was a big year for me for recovery. I finally went, something clicked in my brain and I thought, I'm not having this anymore. I'm not living like this. I could see there was hope. I could see other people recovering, people I really admired. So some amazing people I've met through the OCD recovery journey, like Erica, who was in my position. She really inspired me. She shared her journey. I was like, I can do exactly what she's doing. And a few others who'd recovered, I was like, this is possible for me now. So the two things I did, way more exposures than I thought would be needed. Way more exposures. If you're still scared of an exposure and you're saying to your therapist or your life coach, should I do more of that exposure, or is that enough now? Should I do a different one? Just ask yourself, am I still scared to do it? Because an exposure only needs to stop when it isn't an exposure anymore. So I remember I was terrified of bathing my kids, or my kid at the time. And so my homework was bath them every day for 2 weeks, which to me was terrifying. I did it once a week, twice a week max. And I'd be doing compulsions all day in the lead up. Now I bath my kids every night out of choice for fun, because I absolutely love bathing them. They play together. It's my favourite part of my day. And so you can see, why would I need to do exposures on that? Because I love doing that. I had to go to the beach, you know, regularly because I live at the sea, to go swimming, you know, even though I didn't want to. And now those are all things I do out of choice for fun. They're not exposures anymore. So yeah, I would say if you're still scared of something, there's still work to be done. And unconditional self and life acceptance, that's the only, that alongside the exposures is what stopped the exposures being scary. Now I want to say something really clear about unconditional self-acceptance, because when I talk to people, because every now and then on, like, say the WhatsApp group chat that I'm in, or if someone might have reached out to me or something who I've, you know, been interacting with, they're like, oh, can you explain it from your perspective? There can be confusion about what it means. Unconditional self and life acceptance is absolutely not saying I accept it, it's fine if it happens. For example, it would be absolutely fine if I got cancer. Obviously, no one is aiming in life for that to happen. No one wants that to happen. We're not working towards being happy with that idea. What we're working towards is having the same response to a scenario as someone without OCD who's more rational than us. So let's say someone's without OCD, you say, well, you know, what if you get cancer one day? They're like, oh, that wouldn't be good, you know, because like my family would be really upset. That would be, you know, not nice. And to be fair, society's pretty rational, so they would be like, that'd be awful, that'd be terrible. But you know, we know that people do get unwell, and we know that they can recover, and then they make their whole life mission to help others with cancer, or they raise loads of money. So that is the reality for some people. So we're not saying I want it, we're not saying it's fine, we're just trying to turn down the extreme reaction, which is what OCD does to latch. So OCD will latch and make us terrified of something that other people are only afraid of a little bit and disapproving of it. Not really afraid, they don't think about it. Like now, if you said to me, if someone took your kids, I'm like, oh, that would be awful. I would hate that to happen. But I'm not spending my life safeguarding my kids, making sure that they're right next to me, or triple checking the locks. I'm not over heightened concerned with it. So a person without OCD wouldn't need to work on unconditional self and life acceptance, because they already have a rational response. Their brain doesn't heighten the threat. So one thing to say about it as well is, I don't really think about it anymore, because now that I've worked on unconditional self and life acceptance, and I am at peace with anything that happens in my life. So if my feared scenarios were to, for whatever reason, turn out to be true, I'm not at peace with wanting them to happen, of course not, but I'm at peace with, if that's what's going to happen, there's nothing I could do about that. So I would just have to crack on. Like, there's nothing to fear. It's really like hard to explain, because my beliefs have shifted through chipping away at why things would be so terrifying. It's just a new mindset. Now, obviously, you do not want to be using, and this is something I fell into for a couple of months before I was brought back onto the path, you do not want to be using unconditional self-acceptance as a compulsion, which is, if you get the upsetting thought, you go, oh no, but that would be okay, because if I ended up in prison, I could read books. That is not unconditional self-acceptance. That is a compulsion. We want to be using the tools to change our life's philosophies over time, to understand that life is this beautiful thing to be lived, and whatever comes our way, we're gonna deal with it at the time, and there are gonna be ways to, you know, seek even positives out of situations, and things are not as scary as we imagine them to be, because they are the reality for a lot of people, but we're not compulsively fighting anything off. So like now, I don't do compulsions. Like, to thought, if an intrusive thought comes in, the belief system is there. It's not, oh, I apply the beliefs and then that stops that and sort of takes it away. If that's what's happening for you with unconditional self-acceptance, there's more work to be done, because that is using it compulsively. So it is very much a belief shift. So I can only talk about how I feel today and have felt in the last 6 months. I just feel free. I don't feel anxious. I don't feel guilt. I don't feel scared for anything the future's going to bring me. I just feel really excited about every day. And you know, I think a lot of it comes down to also my life as a whole. This is not just about recovering from OCD, I've always had a fighting spirit in relation to all areas of life, and I feel like everything's just come together. Like, one thing I'm grateful for with my OCD suffering is that I threw myself into my work, which meant that I worked very long hours and I progressed relatively quickly in my career, which means that where I am now, I probably wouldn't have been if it wasn't for OCD, because while all my friends in the same career were like, you know, doing a lot more life stuff that I was too scared of, I was like in the office, working, learning all the time. And they were like, what's the matter with you? Why are you always working? You know, come have fun. And I did go and party and stuff, but that was the only thing I could do really, is work and go out partying. So that's something to look at and think, oh, I'm glad. And yeah, I've just always been a person where I don't stay in situations if they're not right. Friendships, relationships, scenarios. I've got a fighting spirit, you know. I haven't had it easy. I left art college and I left home at 17 with nothing for myself. And I wasn't handed anything. And I just started working in this call centre, in sales, was pretty good at it, and just went from there and went into a marketing career. And you know, I haven't had anything passed to me. And I've just fought all my life. And I think now is the year, 2022. When it turned 2022, I was like, this year is special. There is something about this year that feels different. Everything's come together. And I think it's because I've just worked so hard. And I think my advice to you, if you're struggling, is do not accept it. Like, yes, allow the feelings in as part of the journey. You've got to allow the feelings in and not be scared of them anymore. Once you're not scared of anxiety, it has no power and it goes. I haven't had a panic attack in a year. I had a very mild one a year ago when my baby was 3 days old, but it went really quick. I think it was the hormones. And yeah, don't accept this life. You know, it can get better. It can get so much better. And I have been saying I'm recovered actually from OCD. I don't really know what that means. Do I still have OCD? Yeah, I notice it that I have a personality that has OCD. I have to be careful because I can get quite obsessive just about stuff like life, like everything's got to be right sometimes, which is quite irrational, and I want to work on that. So like, say I'm going out for the day, I don't like to leave anything undone at home. I don't mind not leaving anything undone. I'm not compulsive with that, but I don't typically like it. I don't enjoy the feeling of leaving the house when I haven't done everything I wanted to do. Or I like to make sure everyone in my life has their problems sorted. Like, I don't know if that's just a nice characteristic, but I like things to be in order and right. But I'm aware of it. So I would say I've probably got like an OCD personality because I've got it, but it definitely doesn't call the shots. I don't do compulsions anymore. And I'm not even spending time trying not to do them. I just don't need to do them. I don't work on my recovery anymore. I don't read anymore. I don't use the WhatsApp group I don't use for help anymore. I like being in there because if ever there's a time from time to time when someone else needs help, I'll give them it. I like doing these videos every 6 months or so when I get a chance, just to like check in and give you some hope. Yeah, life's just fresh now, and I feel like it's better than it would have been if I didn't have OCD, because I wouldn't see the world like I do now, like looking at the sky and the trees and everything around me and just feeling lucky to like not be feeling that chronic guilt and anxiety. It's like, this is what I'd always wished for and a lot more. So don't accept where you are. You've got to work at it. But I think the reason that I nearly gave up so many times is it is really, really hard. And you've kind of got to have that hope and belief that it will pay off in the end, because it is so easy to stop. I used to be crying my eyes out in my WhatsApp group, guys, I cannot do this exposure tomorrow. I've just done it now and I'm a wreck. And I would just be like crying and like, I can't do this anymore. And you just got to keep going, and then it just slowly lifts. It's so strange. And it's like 6 month shifts. You know, give yourself time. There's no rush. I always used to think this. So when I really started working on my OCD recovery, when I really started going for it, I was like 31. I used to think, as long as I'm in a pretty good place by the age of 40, I'll be quite happy with that. And that was sort of like, I think that long-term thinking helped me, because otherwise you're frantically trying to get out of that rabbit hole. But, you know, there's nothing that makes me more special or good or committed or strong than anyone else. It's just simply that I was willing to be terrified, was willing to like do whatever it took. And I think because I had this little girl look into me, like, I just was like, this isn't who I am. This isn't my life. This is not going to be my life. And until you get to that point, it's very easy to sink back into, oh, this'll do. This'll do. So I hope that's been useful. I promised myself this video would be like 17 minutes because I feel like that's a good length for a video, because that's how long I would be happy to watch a video. But if you've made it to the end, well done. And yeah, let's see how I do. You know, who knows, something might come up that scares me in a year and OCD will dig in. I don't know. I know I'll never get back to where I was. I physically can't. My brain is different. It's changed. But who knows, you know, I'm up for whatever life throws. I'm not particularly scared of OCD. And in terms of triggers, interesting, one last point to make is every couple of months I'll feel like I'm moving towards being triggered. So I haven't got the, oh my God, I'm so triggered, oh my God, I need to do compulsions. It's like a, oh, this could be triggering. And the brain will go activated. It's kind of like that. And then I'll just sit with it for a few hours and I won't do anything. I'll just carry on with my day because it never gets in the way of my day ever. I don't feel the need to do compulsions. And the brain on its own just seems to unlock it. It's not like I work at it. It's just activated and fizzled. It's kind of like that. And I believe that's because my brain is changed. It's set up to not allow OCD to dig in. So yeah, I'm doing really well, and I hope it continues. Life has challenges. I had a big bout of sleep deprivation, still am of sorts, not as bad now, and I was ill for about 6 weeks, just on and off with being run down from the sleep. But even then, I'd be like, oh, like I'm just happy, look at my amazing kids and my family and my husband, and like we're just all happy together, and life is really rubbish and hard right now, like there's this going on, there's that going on, but you know what, I'm not suffering, we're together and things are gonna get better, and look how lucky we are to have these kids. And just can you imagine, like, your biggest fear for 14 years is now the thing you wake up so excited about? It's not even like I'm not scared of it, it's like, this is the best thing in the world, I'm so happy. And I think that's what OCD does, doesn't it? It goes after the things you love and takes them away. So then, yeah, if you can conquer the fears, you just get the life you wanted. So happy to say that I'm a mum who not only tolerates being a mum and gets through the day being a mum, but is a mum who literally is like, it's just the best thing I've ever done, having kids. And you can do it too if that's what you want. So have a great day. And the coffee that I prepared for during this video has gone cold. Never mind. And I'll drop in again in a few months to let you know how I'm doing. Bye.